I'm CIO Joe Wang. And Joe, so what do you think the market's basing these assumptions on rate cuts next year? What is that all about?
Well, hey, Charles, thanks so much for having me. So I think the market is really misunderstanding the Fed. The market is only pricing in 2 cuts next year, and I think that's because the market is concerned about inflation, and the market is thinking that financial conditions are too loose. But both of those things misunderstand how the Fed is looking at this. Now, if you listen closely to Chair Powell, he's been basically going out of his way to downplay the recent uptick in inflation data. He's going back to saying, looking at, say, 3-month annualized, 6-month annualized. He's going back to saying that shelter is going to come down. So he's doing everything he can to try to downplay this inflation because I think in his heart, he believes that inflation is largely done. It's all but mission accomplished. And at the same time, the unemployment rate is rising. And so that's a recipe for more cuts. Now, the second thing is that now the street and many people are looking at the stock market going up and thinking that financial conditions are too loose, the Fed can't cut. But again, that's misunderstanding how the Fed looks at financial conditions. Now, Fed officials have been telling you they're looking at things like financing rates. So mortgage rates are high, people are unable to afford houses. That's tight financial conditions. Credit card delinquencies are going up. That's tight financial conditions. They make policy according to those financing rates and not how high Bitcoin is or how high Mag 7 is. That's a misunderstanding. And so because of that, I think they're going to definitely cut rates at least 4 times and maybe as many as 6 next year.
You know, it's interesting because if they are looking at, for instance, the jumpstart housing, they'd probably have to do up maybe 6, right? You got to help get that mortgage rate down, right, to under 6, maybe a 5 handle, 4 handle before the housing market really moves. I do want to ask you about the increase in the word. I saw this somewhere, the word careful, right, in recent Fed speak, which has always sort of been coincided with policy inaction. In other words, it feels like there's a certain degree of confusion or angst inside the Fed. Do you think that's true?
Well, absolutely. Now, I agree with your assessment. Chair Powell is a good man trying to do a good job. But listen, think about it from their perspective. Now, next year, let's say we have tax cuts. That's very bullish for the economy. But then let's say we have trade wars. That's not good for the economy. So how are you going to do policy? Or let's look at the labor market. Let's say that we really do have a ginormous deportation. Now, that's going to tighten up the labor market a lot. But then let's say Doge comes into effect. Elon Musk slims down the federal government, fires a lot of people. Well, that's going to loosen up the labor market. Now, you have all these conflicting policies going on. I think it's really hard to make a decision. So what Chair Powell has been saying is that he's just going to wait and see. Now, that's going to basically commit him to being behind. But at this point in time, I'm not sure there's a better way. There's just so much confusion, as you know.
John, you just got less than a minute to go, but Judy talked about currency. And the role that currency is used to manipulate everything, right? We know that the dollar, for instance, plays a pivotal role in our markets. It will play a pivotal role in this trade skirmish that we've got coming up. Where do you see the dollar? Where would you like to see it?
So I'm pretty sure the dollar is going to be a lot weaker going forward, not just because I think we're going to have more rate cuts, but because the president and vice president-elect have been on record saying that they would like to have a weaker dollar. As Judy mentioned, this is a really important part of reindustrializing the United States, which I think is going to drive that American renaissance that Judy is talking about. But I want to warn everyone, though, now that weaker dollar is going to be good for the middle class because it's going to create jobs. But it's not going to be good for all these rich people who have been making money off the equity market. This is because over the past few years, foreigners have really poured into the U.S. equity market. Foreign exposure to U.S. equities is at all-time highs, and it's surged by trillions in just a few years. As the dollar weakens, a lot of these foreigners are just going to have to exit the market to avoid currency losses. And when they sell, and that could precipitate the sell-off that many people have been warning about. This is going to, I guess, undo the K-shaped economy, but I think this is an important part in rebalancing the American economy and having that American renaissance that I think President Trump is going to usher in.
You know what? If we have to take a short-term hit in the market to have a long-term renaissance for the heartland of America, I think that's a trade-off I'd take personally any dime. Joe, I love the way you connect those dots. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. All right, so we always